We were on board Brilliant Lady's iconic voyage from Los Angeles to Vancouver, and if you joined me last week, you would have seen everything we got up to from leaving the UK to going to LA and coming up to San Francisco. Well, now I'm glad to tell some more tales and stories from that very memorable voyage, this time picking up from where we left off in San Francisco, heading all the way to Vancouver, stopping at Astoria, Oregon, and Victoria, British Columbia on the way. And trust me when I say the second half of this voyage gets even more crazy and wild than we ever thought possible when we were planning this trip many months ago. If this is your first time here, my name is David from VV Insider, which is a website all about Virgin Voyages. We tell everyone the information, we give people guides and news, everything that they'll need to know to plan their perfect Virgin Voyages trip. Now, of course, we've been on many Virgin Voyages in the past, but even then, it doesn't prepare us for some of the eventualities that happen during these trips. So I'm going to be really honest when we talk about everything we got up to on board this voyage and let you know any mistakes that we made along the way so you can avoid making the same ones when you sail. So picking up where we left off last week, when we had that incredible view of the Golden Gate Bridge from the Hawk Hill viewpoint. So we dropped off the hire car back at the car hire place, and that's when we decided we'd like to do a spot of shopping in San Francisco. We were willing to walk, but it looked like quite a hike from where we were, so we decided to get a taxi instead. But we'd seen on the Facebook group that many people were using a service called Waymo, and this isn't just any taxi service. This is a taxi service without any drivers at all. Instead, all of the electric cars that run this service drive themselves. So all we had to do was open the app and choose on the map where we'd like to go, and then about 5 minutes later a car arrived for us. When we got in the car, all we needed to do was press go and the car drove itself 40 minutes across the city to where we needed to go. Now, I've been driving since I was 17 and I don't necessarily make a very good passenger even when there's a human behind the wheel, so I thought I was going to be terrified. But I will say, when we were sitting in the back, there is this lovely ambient and calming music that's playing, and because we're in the back you can't really see what's ahead of you on the road. And there's a little screen that shows you what the car is seeing, so it can see cyclists and pedestrians and other road users. So I think that was enough to convince me that it knew what was going on and it was avoiding all the hazards. And it was driving slower than other traffic. So it did put my mind at ease a little bit, but it was a little unnerving being in the car for the first time where a robot was completely in control. I would recommend, if you're in an area that has Waymo, give it a try. It's something fun to do when you're in one of these ports. So after our little bit of shopping, we caught another Waymo back to the port, and it dropped us off just in time to relax in the cabin a little bit before dinner. And today's dinner was at The Wake. The Wake is the upmarket themed steakhouse on board, and I will say it's one of my personal favorites. And it is a favorite of many people that sail on Virgin Voyages. And I think it's down to the fact that they do have rather classic dishes on the menu. So you of course have a selection of different steaks, chicken and fish, but there is an option also to have a rack of lamb, and that's exactly what I went for. One of the incredible features of the Wake are these large windows that look out to, you guessed it, the wake of the ship. And peeking out the window, I could see we were just about to sail under the Golden Gate Bridge. And this is a perfect moment to capture some footage for this exact YouTube video. So I sprung out of my seat before the lamb arrived and headed up to deck 7 to the dock to record some footage of us going through the Golden Gate Bridge. After I captured the footage, I went back down to the Wake and exclaimed to my husband, "Oh my God, I have the best video of us going through the Golden Gate Bridge." I then looked at the footage and here it is. So as you can see, in the excitement of the moment, I somehow confused record for stop and stop for record and completely missed the moment. To anyone that knows me well, this will come as no surprise at all. Well, luckily a couple of days later, I got talking to this wonderful couple and I was telling them this exact tale and showed them the footage that I'd managed to capture. And to my surprise, they were lovely enough to say, actually, if you want a video, I got one. So thank you so much, Michael and Nikki, for being my complete saviors here and sending me this beautiful footage that you got of us passing through the Golden Gate Bridge. It honestly was a really special moment. And I will say, from where I was at the dock, there was cheers and applause from sailors and crew that happened to be there at the time. It was a really special moment, and I'm so glad that I left dinner temporarily to experience the moment, albeit I didn't actually capture it. When I got back to dinner, the lamb was incredible, as I expected, but there was a special for dessert, a sticky toffee cake, and it was presented very well. But I will say we do have sticky toffee pudding in the UK, and it often is served warm with custard. This was a slightly different take on that, but it was still delicious. After dinner, we headed to a bar for a couple of drinks before Bingo Blitz after dark. If you know anything about Virgin Voyages, you'll know that they do bingo slightly differently from the other cruise lines. Often you'll see on the schedule things like Bingo with the Diva, where the resident drag queen on board will host bingo in the Red Room. You might also see bingo with other members of the Happenings cast as well, but Bingo Blitz after dark is very different indeed. And this brings bingo into the manor. This event shows up as a paid for event on the lineup. So it will say $50 to attend. This isn't actually necessary to attend. The $50 is for the bingo card so that you can play along and win cash prizes. But if you simply want to go along and watch the show and see what it's all about, then you don't have to pay anything at all. You can just show up to the manor and enjoy. So the way that it's presented is that there's a little bit of a dance break, and they introduce the unicorn mascot of the evening who performs a dance number. It's all very bizarre, it's all very silly. And other members of the Happenings cast will dance and perform as well before Caricature the Diva starts the bingo calling. Now during the bingo calling, some numbers will activate particular mini games or scavenger hunts that anyone in the venue is able to participate in. So you don't need to be holding a bingo card to get involved with these silly mini games. So it might be something like finding the hairiest legs or finding the weirdest socks or things like that. But those who are able to impress the Happenings cast during the scavenger hunt bit will win themselves a free drink. So it's well worth participating if you want to get some free booze. Now, although we weren't lucky enough to win this one, we did actually win the very first Bingo Blitz that ever went on during the Friends and Family sailing on Brilliant Lady back in August. So that's our little claim to fame. But something that does happen when you win Bingo Blitz is that you will find yourself the center of this celebratory dance at the very end of the show, where the unicorn mascot and the Happenings cast will dance around you to celebrate your big win. When we won back in August, it was my husband holding the winning ticket, and he's very shy, so he's mortified to be in the middle of this dance number. But at the very least, it gave us all a huge laugh, and we did win a few $100s, so we can call that his appearance fee. Once Bingo Blitz After Dark is finished, the manor then reopens for a DJ set, so those that want to use it as a nightclub later in the night can do that. But personally for me, I took myself to On the Rocks because there was a live music act on called Larger Than Lions. I find that the guest music acts that Virgin Voyages managed to get on board are really top class. And the lead singer of Larger Than Lions is called Penny, and she has one of the most incredible voices. And I was lucky enough on this night to see a very special set where Lynn Weber, who plays the lead vocalist in both Red Hot and Out of Time, joined Penny on stage in On the Rocks, and they performed a couple of incredible duets. It was a really special moment, and this does sometimes happen with the guest artists on board. You can imagine all of these very talented people together on a ship all the time, and you can imagine them rehearsing together and enjoying each other's music. They all love music and they all love to collaborate. And we've seen a few times where guest artists will collaborate with each other or with other cast members from shows on board the ships. And for me, it's always nice to see another side to these cast members rather than seeing them in the scripted shows, actually performing and enjoying singing music that they choose. This was really a perfect way to round off such a lovely day in San Francisco. So after such a lovely but quite a big day, it was nice that there was a sea day afterwards so we could enjoy a little bit of relaxation. Well, we did exactly that and didn't get up to too much on that sea day apart from relaxing and enjoying the ship. And one of the reasons we took it easy is because we had big dinner plans, because we had booked Up With a Twist, which is the big cabaret style show on board Brilliant Lady. Now, this is a paid for event, so you do need to book it in the app, and it will go against any sailor loot that you might have available on your account, but it is $50 each. Now, trust me when I say that will be one of the best $50 you will spend across any of the Virgin Voyages ships, because not only is the show amazing, you also get an incredible dinner and 5 special cocktails included with the cost. But even forgetting the food and the drinks, the show itself is well worth the entrance fee. We produced an event highlight video last year talking about Up With a Twist in a little bit more detail, so if you want to deep dive into that, feel free to watch that video next. But all you need to know is that this is a great show with a live jazz band, and this is all very lively jazz music. If you know what postmodern jukebox is, you're in the right area. So it's newer contemporary music and pop songs that are performed by a jazz band and in a jazz style. And this is accompanied by incredible live vocals, as well as amazing choreography and incredibly captivating circus performances as well. There's also a bit of silliness and humour in as well. If I'm sounding enthusiastic about this show, it's because personally for me, it's my #1 favourite show on Virgin Voyages. And I've got a very special souvenir from that show, which I don't think many people have. This normally belongs up here in my YouTube background, but I thought I'd bring it down today to show you what it is. This is the logo to Lady Valentina's Emporium of Excess. And in this bag is a pack of tarot cards. And these tarot cards have the brilliant Lady Mermaid on the back of them. On the front of them, it's all the cast and crew that brought Up With a Twist to life turned into tarot card characters. So here's an example. This is the Queen of Wands, and the lady that you see here is Holly Ann Devlin. She is the producer of Up With a Twist. She created the whole thing. And I'm particularly thankful to her, not only for bringing Up With a Twist to life, but also for this incredible deck of tarot cards. This has to be my most prized Virgin Voyages keepsakes. For now, I'm going to pop them back up where they belong. Now, one health warning I will give about Up With a Twist is that those 5 cocktails do pack a punch. So do make sure you pace yourself through the day before you head off to that show. Just know those words of wisdom come from a place of experience. So after Up With a Twist, we didn't want too much of a late night because it was Astoria the next day. And this in particular was a port I didn't know too much about. Astoria is famous for being the filming location for a few very famous films. The top one being The Goonies. You'll also recognize Astoria if you've watched Kindergarten Cop, or Short Circuit, or Free Willy. But I must admit, I have seen most of those films, but I can't really remember what the place looked like, so I didn't have a huge amount of expectations for Astoria, but we had a lovely day. The weather wasn't particularly nice, and actually the port location wasn't great. We found ourselves walking over gravel and car parks to get to where we needed to go. There was an option to take a trolley car downtown, but it did come quite infrequently and we didn't have any cash to hand, so we decided to walk instead. It took around about 30 minutes to walk to downtown. The walk itself isn't too pleasant. You do find yourself walking past a few breweries and fish processing plants, and the smell isn't great. Thankfully, when we got into Astoria though, it was a lovely little town, very much small town America. And I assume this is exactly why it's been used as a filming location for all these years. Well, we had a nice little look around the gift shops. It was very artsy and very bohemian, and there was generally just a very nice vibe to Astoria. But otherwise it was just lovely to stretch our legs and see some of the lovely architecture and sights that the little town had to offer. After a spot of lunch, we headed back to the ship because there was a big night ahead. We had to get ready for the big Scarlet Night party. And this is where, with this being a colder weather cruise, we really saw one of the biggest differences from some of our other sailings. So if you know much about Virgin Voyages and you've done some research, you'll know that Scarlet Night generally tends to end in this big pool party, and often it does. But obviously, when the ship is heading up north and going towards Alaska, for example, they do need to make some changes. And that means bringing the big Scarlet Night party inside. So this Scarlet Night got kicked off just like every other Scarlet Night, which is deciding whether to get Scarlet Night ready before or after dinner. Now, this is a question we hear quite a lot, but really it is down to personal preference and generally how late you've booked your dinner. I always recommend during Scarlet Night to book an early dinner reservation, and that means that you'll be out and ready to enjoy Scarlet Night when it kicks off. If you end up with a later dinner reservation, you might still be eating by the time everyone's having a great time toasting the start of the Scarlet Night. But we had an early-ish dinner. We went to Test Kitchen again to see our favourite server, Lorianne, and I spoke about her in last week's episode. And we just had a quiet word to ask whether things could be sped up a little bit, just so that we could get on with Scarlet Night. And thankfully she was able to oblige, no problem. We ended up skipping one of the courses just to make sure that we didn't miss anything. So if you ever have plans that intersect with dinner, ask your server and they'll try and accommodate you the best that they can. We ended up taking this Scarlet Night really easy and just meandering around to see which activations were about. We walked to the back of the ship to the dockhouse, where Larger Than Lions, who we saw the night before, was doing a very special Scarlet Night set, which was a little bit more lively than a standard set that you'd see at the dockhouse, and she was wearing this wonderful red outfit, as of course everyone on the ship was. We then had a little bit of a catch up and a dance with the Happenings cast in the Grounds Club. The Grounds Club during Scarlet Night will be set up with a DJ. It's a very unconventional place to have a DJ, but I think it's a fun atmosphere to have in a corridor when people are passing by. You can have a little dance as you're walking from venue to venue. It's very fun. We then headed to the Octopus Garden, which is in the Red Room, and this is where Abby the hostess is transformed into the octopus goddess. We absolutely never miss an octopus garden during Scarlet Night. And this is always a lovely time during Scarlet Night just to sit and relax and reset a little bit before you get back to the party. We managed to catch the last showing of the octopus garden, so it was time to get out of the Red Room when the Red Room was being transformed into the venue for tonight's big party. And like I say, because this is a colder temperature sailing, it meant that this is the replacement to what you would normally get on deck 15 and 16, which is where you would have the big pool party. I will say for me, I definitely prefer the pool party. There's definitely a lot more of a celebrationary vibe. I do feel like the Red Room, it feels a little bit like a school disco sometimes when they do these big parties in there, but they do their best. And of course, it wasn't going to be pleasant weather for everyone to be out on the pool, so we were all thankful to be inside. With that being said, although it's not as good as the pool party, it is still blinking fantastic, and I really have a great time at these parties. And it gives all the sailors an opportunity to hear Abby the hostess belt out the big Scarlet Night song, this time joined by the dancers, the acrobats, and the rest of the Happenings cast in this huge dance number, which is a really big celebration of Scarlet Night. It's always a fantastic moment, and it's one of those moments where you're just really thankful to be on the voyage. Once all the big singing and dancing is done, then the party is taken over by a DJ, and everyone had a really great time closing the party out with the DJ. But if you still want to keep the party going, that's where you move into the manor, which is exactly what we did. And that's where the DJ will take over for another party, which will take you into the wee hours of the morning. And this has become a bit of a theme here, where I was very thankful that it was a sea day the next day. So it was time to recover and recoup after that big Scarlet Night. We had a bit of a lazy morning and headed to the galley for food. We ended up sitting in Gun Bay, which is the Korean barbecue restaurant that leads off from the galley. But if you're ever looking for a seat in the galley and you can't find one, have a look at Gun Bay, because often they will open it up for extra seating for the galley, and you'll often find completely empty tables there. So if you simply want to grab some food and head into Gun Bay, you certainly can do. And you can even place orders from there as well. So if you put the flag up on the menu, a server will come over and ask what you'd like to eat from the several eateries in the galley. So that's a bit of a pro tip if you're looking for a table and things are a little bit busy. But after a spot of lunch, I headed downstairs and had a little wander through deck 7, where Larger Than Lions again were performing in the dockhouse. This time it was a nice chilled morning set. I ended up meandering a little bit further and headed into the Diva Goes West. And I'm so glad I did. We saw Diva Goes West last time we were on Brilliant, just a few months ago. So I didn't want to take any space or any seats that other people could have used to see the show, but I managed to stand in the back and watch some of the show, and Cara Couture was absolutely hilarious. There's something about her Irish accent mixed with the Western United States theme. It just works so well in a really bizarre way. But from what I could tell, the audience were loving it. It was a completely packed house. There were people upstairs watching the show on TV monitors. It was that busy. But it's just lovely to see those drag performances getting so much love on the ship, as they well deserve. I then headed into the shopping area, which is called the High Street, and I was delighted to see a shop has been transformed to be the Alaska dedicated shop. So it was really nice browsing the different items that are going to be available for sale during these Alaska sailings. A lot of this stuff looked really nice and there was a huge variety. The only thing that we didn't spot was anything that was Virgin Voyages Alaska themed. There were things that were Virgin Voyages themed and then things that were Alaska themed, but they didn't seem to have any merchandise that blended the two ideas together. Then because this was our last sea day, we decided to keep things really chill. We had some time walking around the deck on deck 16 and 17. We could see the Canadian mountains in the distance. It was just a really lovely time to be walking around the decks, and it was actually quite quiet up there as well. Then we headed down to deck 7 and spent some time on the dock. It was Opa hour, so we managed to have that lovely Mediterranean style cold meze with some lovely pita bread and vegetables and a variety of different dips to dip them in. It was a really nice way to spend a relaxing hour or so. Later we had dinner reservations at Extra Virgin. Now because I'd already eaten at Opa hour, I decided to just order an appetizer, but this is the beauty of being on a cruise. You can decide when and where you want to eat. You don't always need to have a sit-down 3-course meal. Sometimes you can just go ahead to a restaurant for an appetizer or a dessert with a glass of wine. You can really take things at your own speed, and certainly on this 8-night voyage, we had the opportunity to do that. After our late dinner, we had a look at the lineup, and there was a band playing called Forward Motion, and there was a fantastic atmosphere in there. It's really lovely to go along to these events where people are actually dancing to the live music in the manner. And this band and the vocals were absolutely incredible. We had such a lovely night, dancing the night away and working off that opera hour food and the appetizer from Extra Virgin. Really was a lovely way to finish a nice relaxing sea day. But that led on to one of the most exciting and chaotic days I think I've ever had on Virgin Voyages, and that was all because we just arrived at Victoria in Canada. We got up fairly early to go along to a whale watching shore thing. Now, when it comes to port excursions in this part of the world, whale watching has to be one of the most popular options, and there's a few different ways you can do it. There was an option to go on a much larger vessel that kind of looked like a ferry, but we decided to take the rib boat ride instead because we'd done something quite similar in Australia and really enjoyed it. So the day started off with us getting changed into overalls, and they said you might get a little bit wet. And we thought, well, this is great, we're all covered up, we're not going to get too wet at all. Well, there comes a point in this tale where I certainly eat my words, and I certainly eat a lot of seawater. So we got into the rib boat and left the dock, and that's when we started to speed up to nearly 30 knots. So the waves were a little choppy and a little hair-raising, and a few people got wet in the back, but I was feeling very smug, no water had touched me at all. Then eventually, after about an hour, we ended up to where we were going, where we started to look for whales. And we were told to look out for signs that whales were in the area, so we were looking for dorsal fins emerging from the water and plumes of water from humpbacks. Well, we were very lucky indeed, because our boat were the first ones to spot orcas, a pod of orcas that were very close to San Juan Island. And that's where things really got exciting, because we started to follow from a safe distance this pod of orcas. And what was really cool is the skipper of our boat was radioing all the other boats to say that we'd found this pod, and then all of the other whale watching boats in the area started to coalesce on where we were. So not only were we witness to the whales, which was a fantastic sight, but it was just really exciting to be part of this group that were all hunting for this pod of whales. Now, every single vessel in the area were all about conservation, and there are rules about leaving certain pods of orcas alone and staying at least 200 meters away from the whales. So it's lovely to hear about all the conservation efforts that have been going on for the last few decades. But after we'd spent some time observing this pod of orcas, it was time to head back. The weather had turned a little bit and made the sea extremely choppy indeed. And this is where I really saw the contrast between what I thought was choppy before and what was actually choppy now. It was like a roller coaster ride. The boat was actually leaving the water at times, and you could feel it jumping over waves and landing back. And of course, when it lands back, then the water sprays up. And when I was feeling smug for being dry earlier, well, karma truly decided to get me back, because I got absolutely drenched. And when I say drenched, it was like somebody was throwing buckets of water over me for a good 20 minutes. Needless to say, we were all having such an incredible time. We were giggling and laughing, but I could sense there was a little bit of anxiety from the skipper, because I don't think he was quite used to waves like this. When we managed to survive and get back to the dock, he actually told us that those are the worst and choppiest waters he'd been in for the whole 2 years that he'd been doing this job. And he actually went ahead and cancelled the trip that was about to take place in the afternoon because the water was just too dangerous. So we really did come quite close to the edge of our trip being cancelled, but we managed to have such an amazing time, even though it was slightly death-defying. Well, after we headed back on board the ship, we decided to do a little bit of packing, because unfortunately it was the last day. But of course, there's always that final night. And on Virgin Voyages, they tend to do a party on the last night. Depending on which ship you're on, this will be a different theme. But because we were on Brilliant Lady, the theme of the final night was Circus Disco. And Circus Disco is pretty much exactly what it says on the tin. So you've got acrobats and circus performers, as well as the Happenings cast, all performing this wonderful disco show but it's also the precursor to a disco-themed club night as well. The dress code for Circus Disco is shiny silver, so if you've got anything that's silver and glittery and shiny and you want to show that off, then this is definitely the party for you. But as ever, with the themes on these club nights, it's entirely up to you. You don't need to dress to the theme if you don't want to. It's just an extra bit of fun if you want to get involved. But the show itself was really fantastic, and there was a really nice vibe in the room as well. So this was the perfect way to finish off such an incredible voyage. And with that, it was off to bed because it was time to arrive in Vancouver the next day and finally disembark Brilliant Lady. Because we had such an amazing time on this voyage, I will say there was a little bit of sadness when we were walking down the gangway to end that voyage. It was just fantastic. But we were lucky enough to spend a few days in Vancouver, and I will say Vancouver was a complete surprise to us. We weren't expecting to enjoy it as much as we did, but we also got lucky with the weather. It was lovely and sunny the day we arrived. We did a bit of shopping and spent a lot of time downtown. We also took a ferry over to Granville Island, which is kind of a market with arts and crafts and food and drink, and there's some live music playing outside as well. We also couldn't resist trying out a seaplane for the first time. It cost around about $120 each. I think you can get it a little bit cheaper if you shop around, if I'm honest. But it was such an incredible experience flying in a seaplane for the first time, and also seeing Vancouver from that high up perspective. The flight took around 30 to 40 minutes, and I will say I was a little bit nervous. I'm not normally a nervous flyer, but it's such a small plane, and of course you are taking off and landing on water. Because we were downtown for most of the time, we did want to stretch our legs a little bit, so we hired a car on the very last day before we were going to head to the airport. We drove out of the city over the Lions Gate Bridge and up towards Squamish. We ended up stopping off at a viewpoint where we could see Vancouver and the surrounding ocean before heading up for a short walk around Shannon Falls. It's a really nice wooded area. We did have a nice walk. Then we decided to go to the Sea to Sky gondola, which had come highly recommended. We had a lovely ride up the mountain. It was a really long journey on the cable car, and it was lovely to see the surrounding landscape up there. There was also a suspension bridge you could walk over and some really lovely walking routes as well. We just did one of the shorter ones because it was getting late in the day. So we had a walk that took us about an hour, and there was some more viewpoints to look out of as well. Really lovely place to go. But I do think the cost of admission, it cost around $60 each just to get on the cable car. I do feel that was maybe a little steep, but it was lovely to see the surrounding area of Vancouver and the incredible scenic nature trails that surround the city. But that was the end of our Canadian adventure. We then drove the hire car back to the airport and began our journey home. I just wanted to put this clip in here because I just love landing in London. It's just the most incredible view. You can see the River Thames, the Shard, Buckingham Palace. You can see the House of Parliament and Big Ben. It's a real favourite of mine, and it's exactly why I always want the window seat when we're traveling back home. So to sum it all up, we had an absolutely incredible time on this trip from Los Angeles to Vancouver, including our pre-sale visit to Los Angeles and our post-sale journey around Vancouver as well. All in all, because it was a repositioning voyage, the actual cost of the voyage itself was fairly minimal. Cost just under $3,000 for the whole thing. And we also managed to use some points and air miles for our air transport to get there. So even though this was totally a once-in-a-lifetime vacation, it didn't break the bank, honestly, and we had just an incredible time. The response from last week's video has been amazing, and there were so many people that have watched this video that were also on that trip that have put in the comments just how much they enjoyed this voyage, and I have to agree. I think we might look at something like an inverse, maybe going from Vancouver to LA, so maybe doing the opposite direction, but we really want to go back to these ports. It was just such an incredible trip. If you've enjoyed listening about what we've got up to on that voyage, and you're looking forward to your own voyage, well, do make sure that you follow along. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, but also check out our website at vvinsider.com, because it has all the information that you'll need to plan your perfect trip. And of course, if you want to support the work that we do at VV Insider, which is to get all of this information out about Virgin Voyages, then do make sure when you're making your next booking that you head over to vvinsider.com. We do have some incredible feedback about our customer service. That's on top of all the included extras and perks that you get just by booking with us. It's a real win-win, it really is. Now the work here never stops. We're heading on board Valiant Lady very, very soon to check out all the new things that have happened on Valiant Lady since dry dock. And that's not only just the new Indian restaurant Aria by Razzle Dazzle, but it's also some new spaces around the ship, including On the Rocks and the Athletic Club. They've all had a makeover, so we're going to show you everything that's happened on Valiant. But also there's 20 new happenings events that are happening around the ship as well. So we're going to carve out some time to go along to a few of these happenings events and showing you what those new events look like. We've heard some details about a few of them and they all sound absolutely incredible. So make sure that you stay subscribed to find out about all the new stuff happening on Valiant Lady. But as I say, there's plenty of work to do and I need to pack for that trip for Valiant. But until I see you next time from Valiant Lady, happy sailing.